Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Utility Sports. And we got week 14 of the NFL season. So we're bringing more predictions and pick 'em this week for what is going to be a really good week of games, hopefully. We're super excited for this to be continuing this series. We're going to be going all the way through the regular season and through the postseason. So hopefully you guys do enjoy. If you do enjoy the content you see here, hit that like button on today's video. And also, please subscribe to the channel. Go ahead, give us a follow on Twitter as well. Link in the description for that. Awesome. Let's look at those pick'em records. Guys, I lost another game this week, and it's been tough. Of course, we see the bye weeks here. We got teams here with the Chicago Bears, Washington Commanders, Atlanta, Green Bay, New Orleans, Indianapolis. Those 6 teams are on bye week here in week 14. And as we continue throughout this video, we'll see here those pick'em records like I talked about. 10 games back, and it's probably not getting any prettier here for me. And if you guys are wondering if pick'em is scripted, no, I'm just bad at this. Okay. Austin's just uniquely gifted in this regard. Look at him. He's got almost double as many games right as he's got wrong. 69 losses. Nice. But it's been a tough go of things here for me. So let's get into it and see how much more ground I can lose this week. First game, we've got the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Los Angeles Rams in SoFi Stadium. And for those of you seeing that I'm picking the Rams here, I'm not in love with what the Rams are doing, but 3 weeks ago, I made a promise to not pick the Las Vegas Raiders anymore. Since then, they've won 3 straight games, and I look like an idiot. But that's all right. Raiders rolling here. They probably get this win. I'm picking the Rams, though, because I vowed to not pick the Raiders again this season. Austin, what do you like about Vegas here? Or is it just more of the question marks about the Rams? Probably no Stafford, no Kupp, maybe no Donald. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's the loss of all the stars in addition to the compounding problems that they had to begin the year with those guys still in the lineup. Doesn't get any better for me here. I look at this offense, not able to move it as efficiently as they had a year ago. Offensive line issues, now quarterback issues. There's so much that has compounded on this team, this roster, this coaching staff, to the point where I just don't feel comfortable picking them, even though they are at home against a Raiders team that all of a sudden is showing a little bit of life. So I like that about them. The explosive plays have been there with Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams. That's why I ended up picking the Raiders. One of those rare scenarios where I do pick the Raiders.
Right, the AFC West this year has been more down than I think a lot of people were expecting. Austin, you were not high on the Raiders to begin with. This year, it's panned out very well for you in pick'em, but this week you're riding with them, mostly due to some of the shortcomings from the LA Rams. Getting into our next game now, we look at a matchup here on Sunday. We're going to get into a game here between the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills. And for those of you who can't tell, I'm a Jets fan, and this team's just not as good as everyone's saying. They've beaten a bunch of backup quarterbacks, and they beat Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, who this year hasn't played like Aaron Rodgers. So really, they've beaten one guy who's playing like prime version of himself, and that's Josh Allen, and that's who they're playing this week. But this time it's not at home. It's on the road at Buffalo. It's going to be a tough game, and it's hard for me to see the Jets win. They've played a lot of really close competitive games, but when the quarterback battle is going to be between arguably the MVP of the league or one of the top 5 QBs in the league at the very least versus Mike White, it's just not going to be something that I think pans out well for New York. And as a Jets fan, I feel like I have the leeway to say it. The rest of the team is really, really good. The quarterback position just isn't there. Austin, what do you like about the Bills here? Or is it kind of just the QB battle there for you too?
Yeah, I think the Buffalo Bills are going to throw a lot of different looks at Mike White that, he might be a little bit confused on. Mike White has played pretty well in the games that he's played in so far this season against the Minnesota Vikings. He absolutely torched that secondary all afternoon long. And I think this is not one of those scenarios where it's going to occur that way. Minnesota plays a lot of soft zone. Buffalo will not be throwing those same different looks. They're gonna play some man coverage. They're gonna make the playmakers make a big difference in this one. And once again, Garrett Wilson's looked really good all season long. And once again, I think that's going to continue. However, I just don't think the Jets have enough offensive firepower to really continue on this one. They are missing Breece Hall. That is a fact. I know a lot of people are still excited, about the current Jets backfield, but at the end of the day, I'm not there with this run game.
Right. The Jets have gotten some really good production from some of those pieces. Donovan Knight ripped off a big one in week 13 against the Vikings, like you're alluding to there, Austin. But I think one thing that's key to talk about here with the Jets as well, the receivers, you can tell there's a little bit of an adjustment period here working with Mike White, who has a lot of zip on his football, especially working across the middle of the field. We saw Tyler Conklin with a bunch of drops the last couple of weeks. The receivers are kind of struggling with how quickly the ball's getting on them, especially when you compare that to the fact that the guy they took second overall wasn't even putting the ball on him to begin with. So it's going from non-catchable balls to really hard to catch in a different type of way here. So the Jets receivers are adjusting still, and I think Buffalo, just a better team, they're going to take advantage. Let's get into a next game now. We look at a matchup here between the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals coming off of a really big win against the Kansas City Chiefs in Joe Burrow's career. They're a 3-0 against Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. And it's hard to see them losing here to Cleveland. Yes, the Browns have a lot of things going for them. That defense has been clicking. They took advantage of Houston, who hasn't this year for the most part. And, the special teams, the defense, they all are clicking for Cleveland right now. The question mark is, will Deshaun Watson look like the Deshaun Watson we saw 24 months ago or 36 months ago, back when he was making some big-time plays, leading the Houston Texans to a lot of big wins? Will we ever get that this season for him in Cleveland, Austin? That's really what I want to know from you here. Cincinnati's an awesome team. I think they cruise in this one. My eyes are on Deshaun.
Yeah, I think Deshaun Watson's a big difference maker in this game and the true total X factor. He can be a guy that, if he's anything like he had been playing at the end of his stint in Houston, can keep them competitive in this game. But at the end of the day, we both like the Bengals. They've been rolling, taking care of Kansas City once again. I think, when you look at the Bengals, they're a tough, tall ass to defend, really, with the idea that Joe Mixon went down. People were counting him out. That run game's not going to be there. But Samaje Perine has been terrific. He's been efficient carrying the football. He's a tough, hard runner. You look at the playmakers. Once again, guys like T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd's a very, very formidable trio. And, overall, this team is tough to beat. Now, they've hit their stride. They're in rhythm. Start of the year, they struggled mightily. But once again, nice thing is the season doesn't end after a couple weeks. You see it progress on, and the Bengals are in a nice flow. And all of a sudden, they're looking like a dangerous AFC contender.
Defensively, they make enough plays to keep you in a game. And when you have the offensive pieces that they do, they can go out there and win it. I think, again, a really good divisional matchup test here, especially now that Deshaun Watson is back. It kind of sees both of these teams closer to full strength. But Cincinnati, they got more of that chemistry. They've got the guys who've been playing together forever. You think about Burrow, Chase, but also, Burrow and Higgins have some really good chemistry, and we've seen that pay off a lot this year too. Cincinnati is the easy pick here for me as well. Get into our next game now. We look at a matchup here between those Houston Texans we just talked about a little bit in this last game. And it's the Battle of Texas here, and everything's bigger in Texas. And that includes scoring. Dallas has scored 40-plus points in 3 of their last 5 games. They've been really, really dominant offensively. We think back a few weeks to last time they played the Minnesota Vikings. That was a supreme showing from Dallas as maybe one of the best teams in the NFC. We've been praising the Eagles all year long. I think the Minnesota Vikings do deserve a lot of praise despite their scoring differential. Yes, they've gotten walloped in 2 games, but they're 10-2. They've had a really nice record pretty much throughout the entire year. But Dallas, they've come on really hot as of late. Pretty much ever since Dak Prescott got back from injury, this team's been nearly unstoppable. You pair that with Tony Pollard's ability to run. Houston's a bad team. Dallas is a great one. I don't think there's a greater disparity this week, honestly, between games. Austin, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, once again, I think that Dallas is going to throw a lot of different looks at Houston, going to force, Davis Mills into some mistakes, or Kyle Allen, whichever way they decide to go in this one. I don't have a lot of confidence in this Houston offense. I mean, Dameon Pierce is the sole guy that you can really keep your eyes on. And, Brandon Cooks, once again, down year. It's just been disappointing. The output we've seen from him has been totally affected by quarterback play, and also just some organizational issues that stem beyond just the playing field, which has caused a decrease in production. Once again, they need to get better on the perimeter. They need to, beef off that offensive line even further. Dallas is going to take care of Houston pretty easily.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun interstate matchup, but one that I think Cowboys fans are going to be very happy with the result of. Let's get into our next game now. We look at a matchup here between those Minnesota Vikings as they head into Detroit. And this is maybe TJ Hawkinson's revenge game here. First game playing against his old team, the Detroit Lions. Very rare to see an interdivision trade. The Vikings and Lions have made 2 of them, which means the Vikings are going to get to see Jameson Williams play this game as well, as he's coming back from injury. Austin, Jameson Williams, guy the Vikings could have drafted. They gave the rights to an interdivision team. Do we think that down the road, Jameson Williams is going to hurt this team a bunch, or does Hawkinson get the first laugh here of likely many to come?
Yeah, I think Jameson Williams could be effective in this one. The Minnesota Vikings secondary has been woeful. This defense has been woeful. The Ed Donatel experiment has not worked in Minnesota, and this will be his final season as defensive coordinator. They will move on from him. But the 3-4 has not worked in the benefit of the Minnesota Vikings, and I think that's going to continue here. The Detroit Lions just hung up 40 points on Jacksonville, which Jacksonville's defense isn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. And when you look at Detroit, they're able to move the ball so efficiently through the ground, through the air. They are so well versed in a lot of different areas in the course of offense that it's exciting to think about what this matchup could be on paper. We've seen it once before in Minnesota. We saw how that played out. Ended up being, a final second touchdown that was the true difference maker. And I don't see a different result here.
Yeah, I think Minnesota here comes out on top like we both picked, but it's going to be a good competitive game. And to Detroit's credit, they've got an awesome offensive front, and that's really going to be the beginning factor here for Detroit having success. Protect Goff, let him move around in the pocket when there is some pressure, and let him make some plays off script. He's done that all season long. Detroit's had a pretty good offense because of that. And as long as their defense keeps taking steps forward, going forward into the future, I think Detroit's going to have a really nice team. But right now, Minnesota is just the top dog in that division, I think, clearly. Moving into our next game now, we look at a matchup here between Philadelphia and the New York Giants, another interdivision matchup. There's a ton of them this week. And Philadelphia, they've been the top dogs in the NFC for most of the season. Awesome. We don't really see anything changing here. The Giants are coming off of a tie against the Washington Commanders. This division's been really, really good all year long. I think it's the surprise in football right now. And how are the Eagles doing it being at the top of that division?
Yeah, I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles have been winning at the line of scrimmage. Offensive line, defensive line, they've done a great job controlling that line of scrimmage, really protecting Jalen Hurts, but also getting a ton of pressure on the defensive side of the ball. Some of their late season additions have, worked out beautifully. Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph have been big factors in that middle. Jordan Davis getting healthy. This team is scary moving forward, and I don't expect that to really change here for them going on the road in an interdivisional matchup, which I still think Philly has New York's number in this one. New York definitely lacks some playmakers on the perimeter. Saquon Barkley is still the beast, but at the end of the day, there's got to be some guys on the outside that can really help you out. Otherwise, you're way, way too much, focus on the run for the Giants. You're able to stack the box and, make some of those guys win on the outside. It's just not a game that the Giants want to be playing.
Right. You have to look at the roster here. Isaiah Hodgins scored a touchdown this past week. Is it likely he's going to walk away with another one here? My guess would be no. And when you have such a dynamic offense like Philly displayed against Tennessee, AJ Brown, big touchdowns. You got Devontae Smith, another elite receiving threat to be a number 2 target there. And Jalen Hurts can do it with his legs as well. Pretty much everything's clicking for Nick Sirianni and his football team. And I just see it hard here, even on the road in division. I see it hard for the Giants to upset Philadelphia in this one. Let's get into our next game now. We look at a matchup here between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And guys, I just found out that I'm picking Baltimore this week. This game was not fun to pick because at the time we're recording this, we do not know the status on Lamar Jackson, if he will play or not here against Pittsburgh this week, which divisional games always go a little bit funky. You never know what's going to happen. And I told Austin, I said, hey, I want to pick the team you're not picking because I really don't know who's winning this one. Austin, you decided to go with the Steelers. So give me your thoughts on why you're going with them. And then I'll maybe provide the Ravens point of view.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason I took Pittsburgh is operating under the idea that Tyler Huntley is the starting quarterback for the Ravens. And once again, the Ravens are very, very banged up at receiver, and they have the same issue that the Giants have. And that's why there's been a little bit of struggle here in recent weeks. Just not enough playmaking on the perimeter. I mean, Baltimore squeaks by Denver, but Denver struggled mightily all season long. It's not really shocking, but Pittsburgh's starting to pick up a little bit of steam here. They beat Atlanta. I think they are kind of getting into a nice little rhythm themselves. Kenny Pickett's taking care of the football here, and that is a big difference maker. When Kenny Pickett can, take care of the football and, they can get the volume up for Najee Harris. Once again, that's something that we needed to see. They need to continue to increase his workload because he's a volume back. And I think they're really starting to realize that after the atrocious start to the season for Najee Harris.
For Baltimore here, I like the fact that they've got something to really play for here at this spot. If they want a chance at being the 1 seed in the AFC, they've got to pick it up right now. They got to go out there and play some meaningful football and win some games. And this is an example of one here on the road, divisional game. If they can pull this out, it could go a long way to vaulting them there. Now, they would need some help with Buffalo losing at some point and Kansas City losing at some point, and hopefully Cincinnati doesn't catch them. But if all those things happen, you could look at Baltimore being a play-in or, a wild card team. But if they take care of business, win out, they could be a team that you could see maybe even being that one seed and getting a bye in the first round of the playoffs. So they do have a lot to play for here. And even with Huntley in at quarterback, assuming Lamar can't play, he's one of those perfect transition backups where he's going to run most of the same offense you run. He brings a lot of the same physical skill set that Lamar Jackson has. Now, he's not as good of a thrower of a football. He's not as dynamic and as athletic as Lamar, but he's still someone I think could give Pittsburgh a little bit of trouble here, especially if he's able to get out and run. And if they really simplify the offense for him, and if they're able to get a push on the offensive line, which for the most part, that's Baltimore's identity. So, this team's been really good. Their record, I don't think is quite as indicative of how good they are because they've blown some leads that are just really questionable for a Harbaugh coach team. You're just not expecting that. But I think they take care of business here, despite the injury to Lamar. I think that one of us had to pick Baltimore. I think that this team's just too talented, even against Pittsburgh here on the road, with the questions about Lamar, to not pick them. Let's get into our next game now. We look at one here between Jacksonville and Tennessee, and I'm riding with those Jaguars. I've done it for most of the year. I know there's not a lot of inspiration coming off the loss to Detroit, but Doug Peterson is one of those coaches that's not going to lose a bunch of games in a row. I know the record this year isn't pretty, but they've had some really high moments there in Jacksonville, and I think this team is starting to piece some stuff together slowly throughout the year. And I have a lot of confidence in the offensive weapons that are there. I think Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, you've got obviously Christian Kirk, who I really like. Evan Ingram's had some nice moments this year as well, which is really good for his career. I think that he's going to be able to stick around in the NFL for a little bit longer than I think a lot of people were expecting a year and a half ago. The Jaguars, to me, I think that they can play upset here. Now, Tennessee historically has played very well against Jacksonville, but that I don't think is going to be a historical trend that always holds up. Some of these things tend to play out a little bit differently. It's going to be a tough game for them. If they win, it's going to be narrowly. But I'm riding with those Jaguars. Austin, you know how I do here. Austin, why do you like Tennessee here?
This is my favorite segment here because I get to point out the fact that when you were first talking about your Jacksonville pick, I could tell the gears were turning in your head. Like, wow, okay, there's a lot of things actually working against my pick here, knowing darn well that you messed up this pick 'em. I know for a fact in your head, you're like, wow, can't believe I'm trying to defend this Jacksonville team that just got, dropped off by Detroit. Yeah, and I don't think the story changes here. Tennessee, we are going to see Derrick Henry run for at least 150 plus, in my opinion. I could see that being a realistic outcome. Jacksonville can't. They're not going to be able to hang. No. Oh, no. So, I'm glad that you gave me a game here because this won't be competitive. I don't think so. I am so doubting this matchup right here is brutal. Jacksonville, power on power. No, it's not happening. I don't know if you're going to expect Andrew Winger to make an open field tackle on Derrick Henry after he exposes, one defensive lineman, two linebackers, and gets to that third level. No, I have no concern about this game.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. Trayvon Walker is due for a strip sack, and Josh Allen's going to scoop and score in this game. That's what I'm looking for here for Jacksonville. Let's roll, Jags.
It's nice you're living in fantasy land because that is not going to happen. But let's move on to the next game. I think we gave this one way too much attention for a meaningless regular season game.
Let's get into the next one here now. Hopefully not two AFC South teams. Oh, no, it's two AFC West teams, and one of them is even worse than Jacksonville, and that's the Denver Broncos. Austin, before we even get into this game, I need to ask you, this has been on my mind for a couple weeks now. Does it make sense for Denver to just swallow their pride, swallow the dead cap, and move on from Russell Wilson this offseason?
No, they're way too deep. It's over. It's over. They have to hold on to him. There's nothing salvageable about the situation. They got to just try to piece it together, make it work. I always thought that Russell Wilson got too much praise in his career, but I think now people are insanely low for some of the right reasons, but also it's a disaster with the play calling. They have no idea what they're running. It's brutal to watch. Russell Wilson is not this bad of a quarterback. I do know that.
Yeah, he's not looked pretty this year, and that $55 million cap hit coming up in a year or two, that's not going to be pretty either on the books.
No, and that's okay. They got to just take it because honestly, there's nothing else they can do unless they want to just swallow a bunch of dead money and have to play a rookie quarterback so they don't have to pay a guy for years to come. Maybe that's the route they need to go.
Yeah, either way, it's not pretty for Denver, especially since they don't have their pick this year. They do have Miami's pick, which is through San Francisco. It's all crazy. But the Chiefs here, we think will win this game. This is probably one of those games that we feel really confident in. Kansas City comes off a loss versus Cincinnati. They're going to look to get right here. And I think interdivision game against a team that's struggling, this kind of has all the makings here for a big comeback win for Kansas City. Austin, what's the over-under here on Travis Kelce yards in this one? And then what's one thing you're looking for from Kansas City's perspective to see them building toward the playoffs?
Yeah, over-under, I think Kelce I think he's going to hit 75 yards. If you set it at 75, I'd take the over just because they're going to need to rely on him. But Denver's defense is so stingy. So once again, Kansas City just needs to continue to progress doing what they're doing. This team is, like we had talked about for the season, this should be the favorite to win the West. Everybody was excited about, Denver. The Chargers. Nah, we saw right through that. No way were we going to pick them.
Right. We were high on Kansas City the whole time. It feels really good to be right. Like saying Jamar Chase to the Bengals was a good decision. Remember, most people wanted Penei Sewell there. And, well, a lot of people were saying, hit the panic button on Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce. Yeah, that hasn't turned out so well for those people. Let's get into our next game now. We look at a matchup here between Carolina and then those Seahawks that rightly moved off of Russell Wilson seemingly at the right time. Geno Smith's been playing really good football for the most part of this season. And Carolina just, quite frankly, hasn't. This team's just not as good as Seattle. Seattle's a really tough place to play. This is one of the easy games this week for me to pick as well. Now that I say that, Carolina is going to win by 1 point on some weird 2-point conversion or something. Austin, why is Seattle just the easy, obvious choice?
It's just because Carolina is too unpredictable at the quarterback position. We don't know the production level. Seattle's been pretty consistent for the most part. Geno Smith has been the model of consistency, surprisingly, this year. And at the end of the day, I just think regardless of the running back injuries, Seattle has 5 running backs that have been currently hurt. So once again, you're sifting through a lot of different guys. They're going to have to lean on DJ Dallas a ton in this game.
Right. They've had a ton of injuries in the past. We've, seen the Rashad Penny train, but now Kenneth Walker goes out as well with an ankle injury that doesn't look super good as either. So Seattle's got some questions, but I think right now Carolina's not one of them. Let's get into our next game now. We look at a matchup here between Tampa Bay and San Francisco. Okay, Austin, I did not expect this. You're riding with Brock Purdy, the Iowa State cycle, 7th round draft pick. Yeah. I was not ready for this, guys. Austin was putting together the graphics here today. Was not ready to see the 49ers written here. I figured everyone's going with the Bucs. It's going to be a nice, easy segment. No. Austin, you're shaking up here, San Francisco. What do you like about the Niners?
I'm rocking with Brock Purdy, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Like, this Niners team is so impressive to watch. And I've been telling a lot of people with this injury, I don't think this completely detonates their season because of how this offense is ran and constructed. There's not a lot of plays that Brock Purdy is going to have to go and win a football game with. He's going to have to make some throws, but at the end of the day, there's so many playmakers on this offense with George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. They have a good collection of guys that can make plays after the catch. And once again, Brock Purdy just has to be okay enough for them to be able to win. San Francisco's defense is lights out, and that's why I picked the 49ers in this one at home.
Hey, they've got a lot of nice pieces there. You are right about some of those things. It's just hard for me to pick a 7th round unproven rookie quarterback who, yes, he did some nice things in college against Tom Brady. It's just really, it's tough for me to get there. Yes, I know the Niners are at home here. I understand that, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers haven't looked like the Tom Brady and Buccaneers of old. They still are Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, though. For me, I'm going to ride with the Bucs here. I haven't loved everything I've seen from Tampa. Austin, before the year, I was a little hesitant on this team, more so than I was in the past. The first year there, I looked at them as a true favorite to win the title that year. They ended up winning that one. And then the second year, I was still really high on them. They ended up coming up short. This year, I was a little more hesitant just with Tom Brady being in and out of the building. Weren't really sure. Gronkowski just felt a little funky to me. It's a bummer because I still think there's a lot of talent there. They haven't been as good, but I think a game here against a guy who's unproven, not tested in any way really this year, it's going to be a good opportunity for them to get a win that they need to have. Let's get into our next game now. We look at one between the Miami Dolphins, who have been awesome, and I mean awesome, under Tua Tagovailoa. When he's healthy, this team wins. That's basically the MO here right now for the Miami Dolphins. They've got everything clicking. Their offense looks awesome. Their defense is good. They're a great team. They're going into SoFi Stadium to take on the Chargers, going across the country from Florida over to California for this one. But you and I aren't worried about that travel. We're not worried about any of the, jet lag, any stuff like that. We just think this team's flat out better than the Chargers. Austin, why do you have so much confidence in Miami here?
I've had a lot of confidence in the Chargers, but I think at the end of the day, Miami's they're too powerful. They came down to earth a little bit, actually, against the number one defense in the league currently in the 49ers. Tua made some mistakes, and that was just pretty clear and obvious that San Fran had a great game plan. But at the end of the day, I think the Chargers are too banged up. They're kind of limping right now a little bit, and that's what's kind of making me concerned. I think they're a talented team up and down, but Miami is super, super powerful. And hopefully, Waddle will be healthy in this game. We don't know the result of that just yet on his status, but regardless, I think it's a good matchup for the Dolphins, and they're going to take advantage of it.
Right. Every single time that the Chargers make you want to put some belief in them, something goes wrong, whether that's an injury, a guy misses 4 weeks all of a sudden, or a loss to the Raiders. So those kind of things will kind of pull your belief in this team back a little bit. And it's a team that going into the year, there was a lot of talent, the addition of JC Jackson, Sebastian Joseph Day. You think, hey, this team's getting kind of loading up defensively, should have a nice offensive team with Herbert and some of those weapons. It just hasn't played out quite that way this year. Obviously, injury luck always seems to bite the Chargers. Austin, you and I both know that from a good friend of ours, but the Dolphins here, I think, are just better. Let's get into our final game of the week, and it's Monday Night Primetime here. Patriots head into Arizona, and Austin, you and I have got a hard and fast rule, and we've been exercising it now pretty much all year long. We don't believe in Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury at the same time. It's hard to pick the Cardinals in any single game. It's just hard to believe in this team. They haven't been that good all year long. And the Patriots are one of those more consistent teams over the last 2.5 decades, and Bill Belichick's a big reason why. They've got a lot of nice defensive pieces, and their offense, some games it looks awesome, some games it really sputters, but you're going to at least get good competitive football from this team, which makes it a lot easier to pick them. Why do you like New England here against Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I think they match up pretty well. I mean, you look at the corner play for New England, Bill Belichick definitely elevates his secondary. He's one of those secondary gurus, if we're going to be honest with ourselves. He's had a lot of really, really talented players come through his pipeline, mainly due to his development. And I think, once again, they're going to have some luck on the perimeter here. Arizona, I don't believe in. And I think we've stated that enough on here where we don't have to justify it. They aren't clicking. They're not a team I'm excited about. Kyler Murray has his moments where he flashes like, wow, this dude is a dog. But then there's other times where it's like, man, I don't know. I really don't know what to make of them. Even though the Patriots are on the road, I think that this is a game that, they can take care of business.
Right. If you're looking for a bright spot here for Arizona on why maybe this team hasn't clicked as well, part of it is they just haven't had DeAndre Hopkins and Hollywood Brown together that much this year. And when you have your 1 and 2 like that on the field consistently, it probably does make a world of difference for how successful you are as a team, how good your offense plays. They just haven't really had that this year. I believe the two of them only played a couple games together at this point, and very limited snaps compared to the totality of snaps across the league this year. So Arizona, maybe things can build forward for them at the end of the year. Remember last year they started hot, ended poorly. Maybe they can turn it around this year and end the year really, really hot. I'm hoping to see it from them. We just haven't up to this point. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video. It'd be greatly appreciated, and subscribe to the channel for more. Remember, go give us a follow on Twitter. You can mention us or leave a DM for us. We will be responding to any questions you have. Maybe if you have questions about against the spread, we do only do money line picks in these videos because the spreads change throughout the week. But make sure to leave a like, again, like I said, and then go ask us those questions on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports video.